Hello and welcome to Super Switch Heads, the premier Nintendo podcast on the internet. We've been forgetting to say that, you guys.
Is that our official slogan?
I think we have to remind everybody that we're the best. I am Patrick, and we've got Matthew here.
That's me. Hey.
David.
Hey, what's up? I'm David.
And we have a super special guest today, Christopher Stockman from Bit Planet Games. Hello, Christopher.
Hello. Please call me Chris. Only certain people, such as my wife, call me Christopher.
Noted.
It gives you like PTSD.
In particular situations.
Right, exactly. We will delve no further.
Patrick, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be going over a lot of news and rumors. It's been a big week for Nintendo news. There was a big Nintendo Indies presentation. GDC was happening. There's lots of stuff. And then we have Chris Stockman here. So we're going to talk about his upcoming Switch game, Ultrawings, which comes out on March 29th. Is that correct, Chris?
28th.
Thursday.
So basically, if you're listening to this, it's probably out. If you're listening to this early, go check it out, everybody, on the Switch eShop. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But first, we're going to talk about all the big news that happened this week. We're going to start with the Nindies presentation,
Which dropped 2 hours before our episode came out.
Yeah, on March 20th. And it's everybody's saying this may be the best Nindies presentation ever. How did you guys feel that way?
Yeah, it was good. It was really
pretty
solid.
good. A lot of special events.
Yeah, it's because they packed it in like they do a direct with a really great opening and a really great closing, and that's all they need to do.
Two Zelda closers in a row on Nintendo Directs here, which is kind of cool.
So
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler for those of you that didn't watch it. So the big news that they opened with was Cuphead is coming to the Switch. That was a Microsoft exclusive. It's a 2017 game. You guys excited about that?
I'm stoked. I'm going to buy it again.
Did you play it on Xbox?
Yeah, have it on Xbox. I played through it a couple times.
Did you beat it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, nice. I hear it's hard.
Yeah.
We're all like blown away.
The Mr. Domino, whoever the last guy is. But not
Spoiler.
So, it's part of the story. It's in the trailer, Patrick.
All right. That's the last time we're allowed to make that joke at this episode.
Okay.
That fight killed me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even it was the second to last boss. But it's worth it. I'm going to buy it again. And also the soundtrack's incredible. The soundtrack is, I think, on Bandcamp, and of it's like quartet, like voice quartet stuff, and it's really beautiful and like old timey.
That's great. I have not played it. Well, I've played it over at a friend's house, but I've it's a little hard for me to pick up games for first of all, I don't have an Xbox, and it's my PC is very out of date at the moment, unfortunately, and so I've kind of just been playing Switch games for the most part. But I've been basically waiting and hoping that it would come out to the Switch, and it did, which was kind of a huge surprise in a way.
But it was also not, because there's been a lot of rumors, and we talked about that. We'll get into that because there has been this sort of behind the scenes rumors about a relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo, and this obviously is the first real fruition of it that we're seeing, of an exclusive game coming over.
Or Microsoft just loves money.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
that's my theory.
They're bed pals, right? Like being in Seattle together. So,
Yeah.
kind of put two and two together, and there you go.
Yeah, they aren't doing it because they're best buds. They're doing it because it's going to be beneficial for both of them.
Yeah. It's the fans that are shipping Microsoft and Nintendo as a romance. But it's all business decisions.
Yeah. I do somewhat worry about, so I think of it like this is a very fast-paced Twitch type of game. Mm-hmm. And then if you play it in handheld mode, are you going to be able to see everything right on that small Switch screen?
That's true.
Point.
You play it on a TV, no problem. But in handheld, it seems like it may not hold up as much. That's the only thing I sort of worry about.
That could prove to be a little difficult, but hopefully it's kind of the cartoony style will help it stand out.
Yeah, and if you're playing in handheld, it's a hard game. It's much easier to throw a controller
to the $300 system.
rather than throwing a Switch.
Something interesting though, a lot of people are kind of saying that, even in the Indies Direct, Nintendo themselves said from our friends over at Microsoft, like, I guess so they did some sort of deal with Microsoft.
Right.
But Studio MDHR, I think that's what they're called, right? Who developed Cuphead. They own the game themselves. Like, it's not like a Microsoft published game. Like, they self-published, and I think that what happened was that Microsoft just kind of like gave them a little bit of money to help with the production, and then they kind of honored that deal by having it exclusive on Xbox for the beginning. But I don't know that there was ever anything like actually keeping them from going to other systems. So it'd be interesting to like be a fly on the wall of those negotiations.
So I guess we'll see a PS4 version at some point down the road.
That's not been announced yet, right? I mean, has it been?
No.
So that's interesting.
So they were all at GDC, of course, and the creator was talking about how he wants him in Smash, how he wants Cuphead in Smash, which means Cuphead's not going to Smash, or else he wouldn't have said that. But also, this sort of seems to be what we were hearing about with Microsoft stuff, because it sounded like at GDC, they said that there's no Xbox Live really coming for developers to the Switch, like we hear a lot of rumors about. But that said, there are going to be Xbox Live like achievements and stuff in Cuphead. So I guess we're just going to see it in Microsoft games for now, at least. And they also they announced that PlayFab party service at GDC,
which I think is probably a set of APIs or tools or kits that allows voice chat. Or I don't
like
know,
a text to voice and maybe some text chat too that developers can put into games on the Switch.
Yeah.
But
or PS4. I mean, I think it's platform agnostic. I don't think it's
Microsoft's. Yeah, it seemed like that you could do it on anything, and maybe that's what spurred some of these rumors on about Xbox Live. But who knows? So that's where we're at. Well, on that,
it's kind of cool after because for the past 4 or so episodes of this podcast, we've been talking about these rumors about more and more Microsoft stuff going over to Switch. There have been, obviously this had been rumored, Ori and the Blind Forest has been rumored to come over, and then all the Xbox Live or the Xbox Game Pass stuff. So it's kind of cool to see at least the beginning of that starting to happen. I'm very interested to see how E3 shakes out this year.
And so Cuphead's coming out on April 28th. You can pre-order it now if you're super hyped about it. I actually did.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Because I am. And there were then a slew of other announcements before the other real big announcement in Indy's presentation. Were any of those games, did any of that jump out to any of y'all?
I have a couple. The first one was Katana Zero. This is a game that David and I played at South by Southwest at the gaming convention. It's like in style of a Metroidvania. You play like this neon, like cyberpunk warrior,
like samurai kind of guy.
Yeah, samurai, and it's very stylish and it looks very fun. And it was very fun to play.
Yeah, that game looks really cool. There's some really cool kind of like time mechanics in that game as well.
I think it looks really awesome fun too. I don't like the screen shake when she hits somebody though, but maybe when I play it wouldn't
screen shake is
me.
like the number one thing that makes games good, Patrick. It's like the Vlambeer rule of game making.
I don't know. Maybe when I played it wouldn't bother me, but watching the trailer, I was like, every time she struck an enemy.
Did you guys ever play Strider?
Oh yeah.
No, I never did.
Yeah, it's like a Genesis game.
Yeah. Well, it was arcade originally, but then it came out in Genesis. Yeah. It sort of looks like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same
pixel art version of that.
Yeah, like that sword mechanic reminds me of Strider or Strider 2.
My friend Pedro, actually, I haven't played the PC version yet. I think it's out on PC, right? Or,
yeah, I'm not sure.
It's side scroller. It's sort of side scroller Hong Kong action flick. I don't know.
It looks pretty cool.
It seems like it could be fun for.
Yeah, that's where it's like a
shits and giggles,
like a disembodied like banana is. Well, I guess all bananas are disembodied, but like a voice of a banana is like telling you what to do and is kind of acting as your therapist or whatever in this game.
Yeah, and the banana is named Pedro.
Yeah, But that game looks really fun. It's like kind of you control both hands.
Akimbo.
Yeah,
the combat looks pretty cool in that. Yeah. You can use all the environmental stuff to hit people. Anything else jump out to y'all?
Red Lantern looked awesome. I think kind of the idea of doing an Iditarod sort of game sounds really fun. And they didn't really show much of what the gameplay actually is like in that game, but developers were talking about it at GDC, and it's apparently like an open world kind of procedurally generated like events sort of game. So it's like So as you're training, you'll be running into, like, say you run into a bear or one of your dogs gets sick or something. I don't know exactly how it works.
Well,
but, like,
yeah, like a bear was attacking one of the dogs.
yeah, that was definitely the saddest part of the whole direct.
The trailer starts out with 6 dogs, and then like 25 seconds into the trailer, it's 5 dogs.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. But that game looked cool. Kind of gave me like some Celeste, and not in the gameplay, but kind of the vibes, the story, and like her talking about her own inadequacies. Like that kind of gave me some Celeste vibes, and then also obviously very Firewatchy. But for me, I'm a really big Vlambeer fan, and I've played most of their games. So immediately,
What are some of their other games?
Well, they've done like
Ridiculous Fishing.
Ridiculous Fishing for like iOS. They did Luftreisers.
Oh, yeah.
Lufthouses.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I remember that like an iPad.
Yeah.
Some
I played that
German
on my
sounding.
Vita. Yeah. That one's fun. But then the game that they shadow dropped was Nuclear Throne, and I was really hoping that would one day come. And whenever they actually announced a while ago that Game Maker is now Switch compatible, I was like, okay, cool. Let's get this. Let's get Hotline Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these games, hopefully the original Spelunky. But that was one I was super hyped for. Super Crate Box is also coming. And then something else that Vlambeer talked about was this kind of like pack of this like party pack of games that they'll be updating over time. There's a bunch of little games that I've played by like JW and Rami from Vlambeer. There's this game called Sports Friends that came out a while ago, and as like a little bonus with it, it came with this game called Tennis, which is spelled Tennes. And it's just like super lo-fi, like tennis game, you know what I mean? And so I'm hoping like they kind of pick up some of their old games and throw them into this kind of arcade pack that they'll be releasing soon. So that was pretty hype for me.
Yeah, they closed out with Cadence of Hyrule, which is a Crypt of the Necrodancer, Legend of Zelda mashup, which just looked awesome, and just was also surprising in lots of ways. So have anybody here played Crypt of the Necrodancer?
No.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yeah, it's a super fun game. It can be very stressful. You know what I mean? But this new one looks really great.
So it sounds like Brace Yourself Games, which is the dev company that makes Crypt of the Necrodancer, had reached out to Nintendo about doing some DLC for Crypt of the Necrodancer involving Link and Zelda, and somehow that turned into a whole new game. And I think that just seems really interesting. Like, I don't think we've seen anything like
Out
this.
of character for them, too.
Yeah, it seems like new territory that Nintendo's not just letting there be like a little, appearance of a character in a game, but like an out and out. The game's called
Plus
Cadence
Zelda.
of Hyrule. Yeah.
Zelda, yeah.
And
It's
their
like they're one of
biggest
their-
IP.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Nintendo, throw a bone our way, and Pilot Wings.
Pilot
I'd
Wings.
love to do it.
I was going to ask if you could develop any Nintendo IP, what would it be?
Well, you're not doing anything with it, so
I know, dude. We'll talk about that in a minute.
But that is the big question that comes out of it. I mean, other than how it happened, which we kind of got that glimpse into, but like, maybe what does that mean for the future? Yeah, there's so many games that are dormant, like Pilot Wings, that why
F-Zero.
not? I'd love.
1080.
I would love
I mean,
to see an
we could
F-Zero.
go down the list.
Yeah.
Hell, Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat. I mean, come on.
Guys, come on. Wave Race.
Wave
Yes,
Race.
dude.
Dude, the Wave Race 64 is still, I pop it on time to time.
Same.
It is so supremely balanced.
Yeah.
It's super
Great
fun.
game. And the water physics were incredible in that
Incredible.
game for the N64.
Incredible.
It blew my
time.
mind. I would do backflips on that on the ski.
was
With a little
spectacular.
barrel roll thing
Yeah.
you could do. That was
Yeah.
super fun. Yeah, I think it's just interesting. It's like, I think this is a direction that Nintendo's going in, right? It's like, kind of during the Iwata years and like going up into the Wii U era, like they were very protective of all their shit. They said that we're never going to do mobile games, or we're not going to like let anyone do any more movies about Nintendo stuff, and we're not going to let other people have our IPs. But recently we've been seeing them go back on all of that, like I think it kind of started a little bit with like Hyrule Warriors, kind of that Koei Tecmo like style Dynasty Warriors game. Like obviously we're seeing it with like Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and Starlink with Star Fox in
They're
it.
picking their battles. They're looking for like the cream of the crop, I guess. Games
Right.
that make the most sense.
Right.
But Zelda is kind of like a common theme on some of those titles, right? Like,
Yeah. Well,
So-
with those Capcom Game Boy games,
Yep.
I guess that's kind of them handing it over a little bit. But Yeah, it'll be interesting. I like that it's not a Zelda game. It's like it really it's Crypt of the Necrodancer with Zelda in it. It's like a full crossover.
A big thing for me is there's playable Zelda, y'all. Like,
Yeah,
That's huge.
that's huge. I was talking about that a couple of weeks ago on the show. I want playable Zelda, and I guess I got it. I still hope she gets her own game or something. But man, I'm excited to play as Zelda. Yeah. Anything else about Cadence of Hyrule for you guys
From my understanding, I've never played this game, but I'm picking up the game mechanics from the trailer, which is it's a rhythm-based game. So there's like a metronome kind of sound effect that you move to the beat.
Yeah,
you can only move on the beat, and you can only attack or magic on the beat, right?
right. It's pretty much it's you and all the enemies only move and attack on the beat. Right. Cool. And they all kind of have their own patterns of how they attack. Yeah. So you have to kind of move, and it's all tile based, right? You should watch some crazy, there was a crazy speed run of that on AGDQ recently where it was like, he did it only in the mode where everything is like double time, and he did the really fastest songs and everything. It's crazy. He had to make everybody shut up just so you could, listen to the keyboard. It's like, clack, 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 like constantly. It's insane. But yeah, fun game.
So yeah, moving on. Nintendo released, just while we're still talking about indies, they released the top 10 selling indie games on the Switch. It's kind of what you would expect. Hollow Knight, Stardew Valley, Dead Cells.
Overcooked is on there twice.
Overcooked 2, which that's kind of a surprise. That's a relatively recent game. Graceful Explosion Machine was the one outlier for me. I've heard of that game.
What?
Yeah, that's in the top 10 of indies.
What game is that? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know a lot about it. It's
Graceful Explosion Machine.
Yeah.
Remember Blast Corps? That name reminds me of Blast.
It's not quite a Blast Corps game, but yeah. But man, I would love to play a new one of those. Man.
So that was just kind of interesting that they released that. They didn't say the order of it or anything, but that for me, that Graceful Explosion Machine was the one that was.
That's definitely number one. Yeah.
That's weird. Definitely number one.
Yeah.
And also it came out. Dead Cells has sold over 1 million units, and that's cross-platform, not just on the Switch, but Switch is the leading console. So that's some interesting indie news. Moving on though to another big rumor, I guess we have to say. But it sounds like there's so much information about this. The Wall Street Journal reports that there are 2 new Switch variants coming out, sort of a mini and pro. Like we've talked about this on the show, I think.
Just kind of
there's been rumors about it for a while because it just makes sense. But it sounds like this might be happening this year. That is probably where the rumor part comes in. But this is
it's supposed to be happening this summer, I think.
They say E3 is when it might be announced, and then it might be coming out later this year. So we'll see, but it sounds like Eurogamer had a source on this, and so did the YouTuber Papa Gino.
Yeah, he got somebody kind of telling him very specific stuff about it. Obviously take all that with a grain of salt. But.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at all that information, it just, and also I would say of course they're doing it, right? Like they're gonna make iterations on it, but it just seems soon for it to be this year. What do you guys think about all these rumors, and do you guys think it's
well, Chris, have you been working with the development kits already?
Nice try. Honestly, no. I've heard all the rumors too, but I don't have any information, and obviously if I did, I couldn't say anything, but I really honestly don't. I have no idea. My guess is where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
It's probably true. It's sort of, you say it's soon, but I mean, how soon did the 3DS get a revamp, or even the DS get a revamp? Right? Sometimes
the DS Lite came out quick. Yeah.
It was like 2 years after.
Yeah. So I think the difference there is that it really needed it.
Sure.
The Switch is already pretty svelte and very compact. So it's
what I'm concerned with is fragmentation.
Right.
What if the cheapo version has few less features?
Right.
And all the rumors suggest that it doesn't have HD Rumble. Among other things.
That's not critical, I think, to the game.
Yeah,
there's a couple
but it's a
games
feature.
you wouldn't be able to use, but I don't think it's worth worrying about it. There was a Eurogamer today put out stuff like corroborating the Wall Street Journal's reporting, but Eurogamer was basically saying, that I think what they're trying to do with the mini version, which would be coming out this summer, is that it would be kind of spiritual successor to the DS line. So it's like making it a little harder for kids to break if they drop it or something.
Yeah,
like
I could
that.
see something where you don't detach the Joy-Cons. They're just permanently attached, right? That's it. Remove the rumble, and suddenly you probably save, 50, 60, $70 or so.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You don't even really need a dock. I mean, you could make
that's what I was
portable
gonna-
version.
Yeah,
only.
you don't need a dock.
Didn't the Eurogamer article suggest that maybe it wouldn't even have a dock?
Right, you don't ship a dock with
or
it.
even fit into a dock. Maybe.
Yeah, I think what they would probably do, what makes sense to me, is that they would make a new dock for this smaller version, not have it bundled with the system, and then it's like a little bit cheaper to buy it by itself. And then in my mind, it would be like a dock that you could put it in, and then also charge Joy-Cons on the side of the dock. Because that's what I'm thinking. If it's like, because there are games that require just Joy-Cons, like Mario Party, you can only play with Joy-Cons. So it's like, I think that would be a way that they can then sell you the system for cheaper, not have any controllers included. Then they can sell you extra controllers and a dock. And it just kind of makes a little bit more sense to me that way.
The question is what does the Pro version have?
Yeah, good fucking
I
question.
want to know that.
Yeah.
And
Other than a
bigger
bezel-less screen. yeah.
That's the thing.
And will there be like a Joy-Con revision? Like will it? I don't. Or will it just completely replace the current Switch? Like, will they just stop making these? Once
There's
these
no way
units
they're going to have
sell
three
out?
SKUs. I don't think so.
I'd
be shocked.
It's really hard to know. Also, like, we've seen this before, right? Like Xbox and PlayStation, there is the original PlayStation 4, there's the
PlayStation
Slim,
Pro.
and then there's the Pro, and I guess that could be what we're looking at here. It'd be interesting if
Except the Slim and the regular PlayStation 4
They have the same-
are identical.
Right.
The Pro's the only one.
It's just like a budget model.
Yeah.
I saw some mock-ups on Reddit that talked about the
I saw those.
the budget Switch, and instead of like buttons for the D-pad, it was an actual D-pad. And the first
Everybody's like, we want that one.
the first comment was like Nintendo. Period. How dare you?
I don't know. I think a Pro version would probably have like an upgraded Tegra chip, because they've like right after the Switch came out, like the new Tegra chip came out, that like the NVIDIA chip that's inside the system. So it's like I imagine that'll be in there for some better processing power. Maybe a little bit more parity between handheld play and docked play.
Probably more storage and a Bluetooth headphone support.
That would be tight.
That would be great.
Yeah, goddamn. Yeah, I'd take just a new Pro controller with a headphone jack on it. That would be really nice. But yeah, either way, I think if Papagino's stuff is to be believed, like his source, like he was basically saying that his made even less sense. The idea was basically that the kid version, the like light version, would be coming out in the summer. Later this year would be kind of the Switch Plus, is I think what they would called it in his leak. And then he was saying that even further down the line, there'd be another Switch revision that would be a way bigger, beefed up model. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I guess that would be more like just the next generation of the Switch.
Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating too, because
Yeah.
I could totally see that though, right? Like they replace they don't have 3 SKUs. They have they kind of replace the Switch, and then in a few and it's not like that much of an upgrade. And then in a few years there's a mega upgrade or something.
Yeah.
They say they want it to last 8 to 10 years or whatever. This might be how.
I have a feeling they're going to be gating a bunch of like OS stuff behind the new version. You know what I mean? So like voice chat, party stuff, like basically I think that's something that a new chip could do, right? Just have a lot of these background processes going on. So it's like, hopefully that's something that happens, but also that would be
Don't they gate that already with the online stuff right now?
Yeah, but it's on your phone, right?
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I never play Switch online.
Yeah. All the mobile stuff is on a phone, or all the online multiplayer voice chat and stuff is on your phone, which is just like a huge pain
terrible.
in the ass.
It's terrible.
Yeah, we all hate it.
Yeah, we all just use Discord audio for all the games.
Yeah, just build in Discord. That'd be tight.
Well, we could talk about this forever, and maybe we will talk about it again on the show soon. But let's move on. Yes, we will.
Probably before E3.
It's a Nintendo podcast. There's only so many things we can talk.
Shh, David, be quiet. So we talked about there was a potential leak of Mario Maker 2 release date. Well, we got another one that contradicts it. Amazon UK has the game up for June 14th. We know it's coming in June. we know it's coming on Friday, so who knows? But
Yeah,
it's just
this is the most
interesting.
non-news item on the list.
It's just interesting to me. That would be like right around E3.
I much prefer this leak to the other leak because it's 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
But I think it would be like right around E3, so or right after. So that would be interesting.
Shadow drop.
If it came out right then. I don't think they're going to shadow drop a game that has physical.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Which jumping back for a minute, something I wanted to say about Cadence of Hyrule. Do you think that game will come out physically? Like, I'm really interested to know if that's going to be and what the price point of it's going to be.
$39.99.
Yeah,
It's going to be a $40 game
yeah.
and $40 both
Said
physical
with
and
authority.
digital. Yeah.
That's my business side.
I was kind of curious what y'all's take was on that because I've been trying to wonder.
Zelda is a premium. It's a premium IP that demands a premium price.
People would riot if they could. I mean, people buy. There were when the Switch came out, there were more copies of Breath of the Wild sold than there were Switches sold.
I remember that.
People
fact,
they want to collect Zelda shit, like,
And the Mario Rabbids game was, I think, a $50 product too. So.
yeah.
Well, sorry to jump back to that. Moving on. Apple. This isn't a Nintendo news, but Apple announced that they have Apple Arcade at their Apple event recently, which is like a subscription-based service where you can get an app on your phone or your Apple TV or your iPad or your Mac and kind of, I guess you can download games. It's not like streaming them. But this is really interesting to see, Google and Apple. And did you guys see that rumor about Walmart trying to get into
they're trying to do their own
too?
streaming thing.
So it's just kind of interesting to see all these other companies flooding the market right now with their own gaming apps or services. Did you guys watch this announcement or read anything about it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about
I
Apple?
think it makes sense, honestly, from a business perspective. Like, everyone wants to be the next Netflix, Hulu of the gaming world. And if this is an option for a gamer, and it's like, if it's depending on the price point, if it's $10 a month, then it gives me access to like 100 games that I might not play otherwise. Maybe I'll be on it.
And they're going for some exclusive games, it sounds like, too. So we'll see. If I'm just kind of curious what kind of games. I guess they're going to be mobile type games, but the trailer had it seemed a little bit like more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious what the average game of that 100 is,
It was weird that there wasn't a tentpole game, so to speak, to really drive home this game service to gamers, whether they be casual gamers or hardcore gamers.
Stadia didn't really have that either.
Yeah. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But some recognizable IP that attracts casual and hardcore gamers alike.
That's because never mind.
Come on, go for it.
I'll get in trouble.
All right, fine.
And further non-Nintendo news, PlayStation had a direct style presentation.
That's Nintendo news.
It is because of the fact that it was copying. So Nintendo has been doing directs for a while, and then Xbox has started doing their what do they call it? I've totally drawn a blank
Inside
now.
Xbox.
Inside
Xbox,
Xbox, which
yeah.
is sort of a similar thing. And then
And-
PlayStation did this State of Play. Did y'all watch it?
I watched it. Yeah.
I watched
watched
it.
it.
It was super VR heavy.
It was.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Right up my alley. Yeah.
Which so
They're making a big play. They continue to make a big play.
Right.
we haven't talked about this, but Ultrawings, which is coming to the Switch, was previously a VR game available on PlayStation VR and on Steam.
Yeah, and on Oculus.
And on Oculus.
And Daydream and Gear VR. Anyway,
We can
go on.
all the VR platforms.
I didn't know it was on Gear. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's
But
cool.
it just seemed interesting that they were making such a big VR push because maybe I'm wrong, but it seems a little niche for PlayStation to come out and be like, we're going to do a big announcement about, direct.
Well, I mean, I think they know that they're leading kind of right now in VR,
yes.
And so it's like they've got the cheapest, like, full kind of VR experience system that you can get right now. And it's like they've got the most units out there as far as I understand.
There's a hardcore, very vocal fan base. It's minority, it's small.
Sure.
But still.
Yeah, that PSVR subreddit is like...
I'm very active on that.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's how I found out about Ultrawings. It was because of the subreddit, because I played your game. But it's also like a very optimistic subreddit.
It is.
Which is very
awesome.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I go in there, I'm like, man, this is the most positive community I've ever experienced.
It's really optimistic.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just like, play this game. It's really fun. If you don't like it, that's okay.
Well, haters
Yeah,
just get
exactly.
downvoted.
Yeah, they do. All the haters get downvoted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not trying to poo-poo VR, you guys. What I'm just trying to say is that I think that PlayStation made this big announcement and people are expecting Last of Us 2 or something, to be announced here. And it was just kind of a handful of VR games and nothing new, really, nothing mind-blowing. They don't have the Nintendo open with something strong, close with something strong.
Right, sure.
Down. And in fact, they opened with Iron Man VR, which looked like, I was like, is that the fucking Avengers game that we've been hearing about? I was like, this is the Avengers game we've been hearing about. And then it's like, oh, it still looked cool, but like it was
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah.
a letdown in a way.
I don't want to say too much.
But yeah, I don't know, that one to me looks a little bit more like a shorter sort of VR experience. You know what
Which
I mean?
I really hate. I wish companies would stop doing these VR experiences.
You want them to
same,
be a full
same.
game.
I do.
Well,
I do.
'cause that's something that Ultrawings does really well. Is it's like a full game that you can play in VR.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you before we started recording, like it's a long game. You can spend a lot of time in that if
you
want
want,
to complete
yes.
everything.
40 some hours.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, there was that one game that they showed,
Blood and Truth.
Yeah, Blood and Truth. That kind of looked like a full feature complete
Yeah.
experience. It looked like at least a 6-hour game.
The problem is the development costs of these games are ridiculously high, and the bigger the game, the more money it takes. Usually, not
Sure.
the case with us, but usually that is the case. And so what happens is that if there's a small market there, it's near impossible to recoup your dev costs. So the really big titles are getting funded by the platform holders because they don't really care.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
I guess this is probably a good segue
Yeah,
into the new Labo stuff.
Yeah. So,
Yes. Let me just state for the record that we had no idea that Labo VR existed until after we went gold.
right.
And what
I saw this tweet.
for those of us who don't know, what does went gold mean?
Ultrawings, yeah. So Ultrawings went gold. That means that we finished the game and got approved. Nintendo said, yes, you can release it
You
now.
can put it on our platform.
Yeah.
So we obviously talked about Nintendo Labo was announced a while back, and we talked about that. But this week, reviews and people are getting hands-on experiences with it, and it sounds both like a typical Labo and surprisingly okay VR experience from what a lot of the reviewers are saying. Is that what y'all's impression is from reading or seeing any of these?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a
reviews?
good entry point into this kind of technology. Still really wish that it had a head strap. You know what I mean? And so you weren't constantly holding it up to your face. But
It sounds like some of the games are kind of pass and play from what I heard or read, and so that's part of arguably why. But that some of it, which is kind of interesting too. You think of VR as being a solo experience, but it sounds like they're trying to make sort of multiplayer
that's a
mini games
design
where you
decision is
pass
what you're saying.
around.
Yeah, but it's like
And you have to hold it up. I'm sorry. You have to hold it up to your face?
yes, yeah.
What
exactly.
about that elephant-looking controller?
all of it you
Yeah,
hold.
it's the pressure that you're putting onto your face.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. So we talked
It's
about
not
this
even
too.
quite. Yeah.
Somebody's gonna come up with a mod for it, but it seems by design that they want it to be. I mean, all these Labo games are short experiences
right.
anyway, but it seems by design that they want it to be a shorter experience / you pass it around, I guess. But
Right.
that's weird.
What irritates me about the whole thing is that we named the game Ultrawings on the Switch. That's the name of the game, Ultrawings. We named the game on the other platforms that are non-VR, Ultrawings Flat.
Right.
The reason why
Right.
we did that is because
There's no.
we were told we had to do it because we had Ultrawings, the name already, so we had to come up with something different about it.
Right.
We chose just regular Ultrawings on the Switch because we knew that there would be no confusion. You can't get VR on Switch, so there'd be no confusion. It's just Ultrawings on the Switch.
Right.
But
Well, at least you've got you got the gyro controls. It kind of is a little bit like
I don't think there's gonna. I mean, who knows? It's Nintendo, but I don't think there's going to be any other VR experiences other than this Labo.
Correct.
I mean,
That would be my guess
we'll see.
as well.
I think a lot of it depends on how this one does. Because I mean, I know
That's fair.
this has reinvigorated. Like no one. I mean, no offense if you bought the vehicle kit, but nobody gave a shit about the vehicle kit for the Labo kit.
It's because the first two weren't super successful because everybody was like, "This is just going to be the same."
Right. Like this has at least reinvigorated interest in the Labo brand. And it's like, and honestly, some of it looks pretty cool. Like like the elephant one that we were kind of hypothesizing would be like a drawing thing. Like it's tilt brush basically.
Yeah.
You know, and that looks cool. And the way that they do it is insane. It's like the elephant face has the reflective tape on it.
Yeah.
And then the controller that's sticking out in front of you has the IR camera looking back. And that's how they do the positional
It's
tracking.
clever.
Yeah, it's
Super
really
clever.
all of Labo is clever. You know,
Yeah,
it's like that's where I think they shine.
Except they won't let
creatively.
us developers use any of that stuff. Like they have that vehicle kit that comes with a flight stick,
Right.
right? What
That would
better
be
game to
perfect.
support the flight stick than
Yeah,
us?
so
Denied.
they just straight up denied it.
No, it's not even that. They don't let.
It's not an
Maybe I
option.
shouldn't say, but
Sure.
screw it. They just don't let third parties use the Labo stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I complain to them, and it's like, it's, who am I?
Yeah, because like they've added stuff into Mario Kart, but I guess it's only their first party
That's
stuff
right.
that they're
That's
giving
right.
up for.
Yep.
That's a shame. Yeah, because I think there's a lot that a lot of people could do if that was opened up.
We could have used it.
Yeah, for sure.
I
mean,
And you think it would-
playing Ultrawings with having to hold the headset up to my face might be annoying.
No, like the vehicle kit had a joystick.
Right.
Had a joystick that you could use.
I see what you're
I'm
saying.
like,
Yeah. That would have been.
I couldn't
nice.
think of a better game.
Yeah, exactly. So that'd be great to see that open up. I do want to say one thing before we move on from the Labo thing, because I wasn't 100% sold on it when we first kind of had that initial reveal, but from watching this trailer that showed a lot more of the details of it, something I didn't know was in it is like they've hugely expanded the Labo Garage.
Well, yeah, the VR part of the Labo Garage.
Yeah,
does
it's
sound pretty
insane.
cool.
Like you can now do 3D modeling and like scale people in a 3D environment, and then it's got 60 little mini VR games already installed, and it looks like every single one of those was made with the in-game programmer.
And you can
know what I mean?
modify them.
Yeah, and you can.
that's super cool.
So that's cool. I think it's like, the Toy-Con Garage from the first Labo kit, I played around with it for a little bit, but it's like very, very limited as to what you can actually do with it for experiences. But this one looks like you're actually making VR games for it. So like, hopefully this kind of gets the interest going and they open
maybe
up a
the
little
Pro
bit more.
is V.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. If you could have a 1080
A Switch
display
with
on
the
your
strap.
face, it'd be better than barn doors with a 720 tablet. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that could be
watching
nice.
this video just reminds me of Mario Paint.
Yeah.
Do you guys play Mario Paint?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fucking love Mario Paint.
So we're 3 out of 4.
I did not play it. I remember wanting it when I was
Came with a mouse.
12
Well,
or whatever.
I think
A very
that-
cute mouse,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, that's part of it. Is because I also talked to friends that I grew up with, and I played it, and they're like, "What's Mario Paint?" And like Labo feels very similar to where it calls to a certain audience. It calls to a certain person who wants to hold an elephant in front of their face in order to draw.
That's a pretty niche market, but
Yeah. But I love Mario Paint, and I had a fun with it. I just drew a bunch of dicks because I was a teenager, and like,
And then to save them, you had to like record it onto a VHS.
yeah, and tried to make Rick Astley covers and the Music Maker.
Yeah.
But for like, if you're a creator, then Labo, it like calls to you.
Yeah.
But like sometimes you just want a game and have the experience of a gaming and not necessarily to create. So I think it's interesting that Nintendo feels like it's going down this line that they went down with Mario Paint.
And I feel like Labo and Mario Maker are the heir apparents to Mario
Yeah,
Paint. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like a way for them to give people the ability to flex their muscles a little bit creatively, but still keeping them within a playpen that's very clearly curated.
Cool. So yeah, big news week. But we're moving on now to our main segment, which is our interview with Chris Stockman of BitPlanet Games. So thanks again, Chris, for coming on the show. This is awesome to have you here. I was just kind of wondering if you could just start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and about your history and game development, and also maybe a little bit about BitPlanet Games and how that got started.
Sure. Well, I've been making games now for damn near 20 years. First job I got, I cold called the company and asked for one.
Nice.
And 3 months later, they called me back and said, "You got it." Like they just said, I spoke to like the EP of the studio, and he was the father of one of the owners.
Okay, right.
And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" It's like, "I want to make video games."
How old were you at the time?
15.
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
and he called me back the day summer vacation started and said, "You have a job. You made $5 an hour, and you come in and you play video games and tell us what's wrong with them." And he said, bring along your best friend. And so that's what I did. I brought along my best friend, and we worked that entire summer.
That's cool.
And a little beyond that.
Well, that's a movie right there, dude.
Working, and it was my first venture in game development, and it was working for the largest at the time third-party developer in North America. They're a company called Park Place Productions, and they made the original John Madden football for the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo.
Oh, wow.
John Madden Sports Talk Football.
Had that game.
and NHL hockey. That's what put them on the map. And I went there, and I did not work on those games, as it seems to be a common element in my career. I worked for big companies after their heyday, but I worked on a Muhammad Ali KO boxing for the Sega Genesis. That was my first credited game.
Wow.
Very good. Does it hold up?
No, it's terrible. It's a terrible boxing
Mike
game.
Tyson.
It's weird because they did this like pseudo 3D style to it. And the ring like rotated, but it didn't really rotate. It was like very, very jerky.
Like kind of Mode 7 graphics.
Well,
sort of thing?
way worse than that because there was no such thing as Mode 7 on the Genesis.
Oh, right.
So they sort
Genesis,
of faked it, but it was very like, pause, rotate, rotate half a second, rotate half a second. Yeah, it was terrible.
Hey, they were trying. Yeah.
And then I got out and I went back in the industry back basically in 97, 98. I did some contract work up in Seattle. Worked at Nintendo actually very briefly.
Cool.
And then ultimately landed my first sort of real salary job where I became a real boy in Salt Lake City at a company called Single Track. Now, what is Single Track known for? Jet Moto, Twisted Metal.
Gotcha.
Oh, I love Jet Moto.
Nice.
Those early Warhawk, those early PlayStation 1 games. But of course, I came in after those games shipped, and I worked at, they had just got bought by a company called GT Interactive. I don't know if you remember that company. I worked on this really terrible racing game called Streak, which is a terrible name and a terrible like hoverboard racing game.
And a terrible thing to do.
Exactly.
Just in general.
Yes, exactly.
At a public event.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, you
yeah.
get arrested if you do it.
Exactly.
This
So-
is 2019. Don't streak anymore.
After that, this is very brief, but after that, I worked at Novalogic, makers of Delta Force Comanche. Of course, I came in after those projects shit and worked on a game called Tacky on the Fringe. And it was the last great space shooter, I guess. Well, yeah, it came out right after Free Space 2.
Right.
But I had Bruce Campbell in it, so that was cool. And then from there, I went to a company called Ritual Entertainment. They made Sin and Heavy Metal Fact 2. And I worked on a Star Trek Elite Force first-person shooter game called Elite Force 2. From there, I went to Volition.
Right. Yeah. You worked on Saints Row, right?
Yeah, where I was design director of Saints Row.
Cool.
And then I got in the world of indie development.
Right. So what, basically that kind of leads me to another question I had for you is like, what is the reason that you wanted to move into indie development? Because you founded BitPlanet Games, right?
I did, yeah.
So like, what is it about kind of the indie scene that like really drew you to it? Like, what about wanting to own your own studio? Like, did you feel like kind of stifled like working for these AAA studios or?
No, it had always been a dream. I guess you could say it always been a dream of mine. I started the first indie studio I started was back in 2007, back before indie became a thing.
Right.
And that was when Xbox Live Arcade was just picking up steam. And a group of long-term Volition vets had invited me to join their studio, and they wanted to make a Zelda clone. I said, you're crazy. You're not going to make a Zelda clone with 3 people. I have another idea. So I threw out this ridiculous dodgeball game called Pirates vs. Ninjas Dodgeball. It was just some crazy idea I had where I wanted to remake the Super Dodgeball for the NES with pirate and ninja characters and call it a day, right? That's basically all I wanted to do. And it ended up turning into something vastly different than I wanted. But it was that venture where I began, like I fell in love with being a company owner. Now the economy collapsed, the company went down with it. Fast forward a couple of years where I did a couple jobs here and there, working for companies to try to get out of the crazy amount of debt that I got myself into from that.
Sure.
And then BitPlanet became a reality when I was in Dallas. I got a job at Zynga. They laid me off a month and a half after I got there. I said, screw this, fuck this, I'm done. They gave me 5 months of severance, and I turned that into BitPlanet. And that was over 5 years ago.
Cool.
Wow.
So I guess I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
So you're the founder, or did you co-found BitPlanet?
No, I'm the
with-
founder.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you have some people that work in Manila. Is that correct?
I do, yeah. The bulk of our development is done in Manila. Hence why I can do big VR games, folks.
Yeah,
That's cool.
And we'll get into that because I am kind of curious about the Austin Manila and like how that works. But let's talk about Ultrawings. First. So tell us, I guess, just where did the idea come from? I mean, obviously. You said Pilot Wings and it's inspired by that. But can you tell us about that and what made you decide to do it VR, or did you decide to do it VR right away?
I did, yeah. I guess I saw a way to a couple things. When VR was first coming up, I had happened to see a very, very early demo of that job simulator game,
right?
Which was developed here in Austin. I went to the dude's house, Alex is his name, and I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, VR, it's amazing! I can't believe I can grab digital items and manipulate them, and it blew my mind. Right, I'd never seen anything like it before, and I went back and I was like, well, what could I do that maybe no one else is doing? And the first thing that popped in my mind was a Pilot Wings type of game. I loved Pilot Wings so much.
Yes,
I played the crap out of it on the Super Nintendo. I equally played the crap out of it on the Nintendo 64. They basically touched it for a few minutes on the 3DS. Still bought it though, but I'm
one of those
big
games.
Fan. So. A friend of mine who was living in Manila, one of my best friends, he had just shipped a mobile game that pretty much bombed. It came out on the App Store and Google Play and all that, and it just went nowhere. And it was free, and that's probably why, one of the reasons why.
Sure.
And so I said to him, hey, you like aircraft stuff. I like aircraft stuff. Why don't I have this great idea? I think I can get us some money for doing a game from Oculus, because I had friends at Oculus at the time. And I said, let's do this. So we spent 6 months banging on a demo.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the ultralight flying around on that first island that you start out in the game. Mm-hmm. Just flying around. And I showed it to my friends at Oculus. Like, yep, done, good, let's go, seal the deal. And then we just went to town and we hired people out there. And we realized that in Manila, you can keep your costs really, really low. It's cheap to live, and it's just cheap to develop stuff for. Mm-hmm. And so, that's basically what we did. And we spent a year and some change on it. And and it's just kind of grown in popularity over the course of the last, 2.5 years.
I mean, the PSVR subreddit loves Ultrawings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Matt, you have it on your PS VR.
Yeah, it's the second game that I bought. I bought Job Simulator was the first one. Ultrawings was the second one.
When did it come out? For what was the first date it came out for? What platform?
The very first time it came out in February. 2 years and a couple months ago. It came out February 21st, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And did it come on to PSVR right away, or did
No.
you? Okay.
No. Sony had an opportunity to be a publisher of the title, but they were afraid of vehicle games.
Gotcha.
And so they
Why
said,
is that? Because I feel like that is the best stuff for VR because you're not walking around.
So I think Ultrawings straddles the line between. It looks indie. I mean, it's not super detailed, right? It's not a super detailed game.
The low poly aesthetic.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of. I don't know. I think Sony just kind of didn't appreciate that art style, right?
Sure.
That's all I say. I mean, I don't think they appreciate it. And I do think they were afraid of motion. Even though they did ship rigs, which is like one of the most vomit-inducing games around. So, so then maybe that's not exactly true. But, maybe they just didn't like the design. I don't know. But they passed on it initially. But I did circle back to them, and I did end up signing a deal with them to do the PSVR version because we do nothing for free, and
you should not.
Yeah, and it worked out really well for us. And I think it sort of grew a life of its own. Really, when two things happened: when the PSVR version came out, and then when Oculus put us on the cover of the Oculus Go, their standalone headset. They put us on the Go packaging. So that
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in that first demo you were talking about, where you were just kind of around that first island, did you always have the tactile grabby mechanics?
No, it was gamepad only at the time.
Right.
And it wasn't until the touches came out. Well, we got touches and we put that in implementation and I was skeptical as could be. I was like, I don't think this is going to work. I mean, but we put it in that first implementation and we were like, wow.
Yeah.
This is something.
That's what struck me because I played it first from the code you sent me of the Switch version, right? So I've played like this gamepad version first, and I started to love it, because like I said, I'm a huge Pilot Wings fan as well. And like, it just feels really good to fly. And then I came and played it over at Matt's house, the PSVR version, because I don't have PSVR.
Right.
And it was like the job simulator thing. Like for a while, I was just sitting in the office chair, like picking up the mug and throwing it at the wall. And, but I was amazed at how quickly my understanding of the controls from the Switch version carried over to me actually pulling the stick with the Move controller. It actually felt very natural. It's surprising that wasn't part of it from the very beginning,
Yeah, no, because there wasn't such thing as motion controls from the very beginning. Even with Sony's stuff, when we were working on that, like we started working on PSVR version before even, we did a demo for them, right? And it was just gamepad at the time. So yeah, it was motion controls for the VR version, I think, in my opinion, is the only way really to play the game. A lot of people disagree. They want to play with the HOTAS and all that, but motion controls on a VR game. I mean, why are you in VR if you're not being able to see your hands and stuff? I mean, that's the whole purpose.
Especially
of VR,
with
right?
like the force feedback and the rumble, like as you're moving the stick, it's like it feels like you're holding it, which, and I guess because you're actually holding a controller that's kind of shaped the same way.
It does. It helps out quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so the game's coming to the Switch now on March 28th, which if you're listening to this, it's probably tomorrow or it's out now. So can you tell us a little bit about what it was like moving a VR game over to a 2D platform and the challenges that entailed? Yeah,
it took us a lot longer than we expected. I mean, everything takes longer than you expect, but this took extra longer than we expected. The biggest things for us was that we wanted to somewhat adapt the game a bit to the Switch, I guess, audience or just that style of gameplay.
Sure.
So, we added the extromal cameras. I don't know if you got a chance.
Yeah, I'd say I'm kind of half and half, like, especially when I'm doing those long flights, like when you're going from one island to another.
Yeah.
I like kind of just flipping out to the external cam and then just kind of relaxing for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's almost like autopilot.
That's where you can change to see the full view of the whole plane instead of just the cockpit view.
Yeah.
Makes it feel more like Pilot Wings as well.
It does, yeah. And we didn't have that on the VR version. So adding that was paramount. Other things was really simply pressing a button to start your aircraft. Mm-hmm. You don't imagine if you had to look and use the camera to look and actually toggle each thing to start it. I mean, my gosh.
It'd be difficult.
After this first time, you'd be like, never again. And you probably couldn't even get it through the first time.
Right.
And then making the UI a little bit more streamlined so that all you got to do is you just use the D-pad and you can, it focuses on the laptop and then getting in and out. And making the game easier.
Mm-hmm. In what way? How'd you make it easier?
Well, before in the VR version, there is this sense of depth and perception that you have that you just don't have in the flat version, right?
Sure.
And so aiming for like small little rings on the flat version is very, very tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is challenging, almost to the point it's frustrating. So in VR, it's not. Because you have this spatial awareness and this depth perception, and you have this really do micro adjustments with the stick that you just aim. It's just easier to aim at stuff.
Sure.
So what we did is we just scaled up all the rings and reoriented them so that they're kind of always, they're always kind of facing you. There's never really a point where you have to like look around and look where anything is at. Mm-hmm. The balloons we made,
a little bit bigger.
Yeah, a little bit bigger so that they're not microscopic, to aim at and fire.
Right.
Things like that just make it friendlier to play on the flat version that caters to that.
Also, specifically in the Switch version, something that I've been enjoying in the balloon popping stuff, like when you're in the light plane, like when you hold down ZL, you can use the gyro, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I actually I just like gyro aiming in general. Like when I play Splatoon, I play with the gyro controls. I played Doom with gyro controls. And it's like, I think that being able to use the right stick and the gyro just made it for those little precise moments when you're trying to aim for something while you're also handling not crashing into something. Yeah. It made it a little bit more palatable. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the gyro stuff is pretty cool too, and I'm glad that people are, that you see the benefits of it.
Yeah. It's cool, and you can do it the other way if you don't like gyro controls as well, right? Which is cool.
But it's a shame. I don't think gyro controls would work with controlling the flight stick though. I think the precision is just not there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could maybe do like with 2 Joy-Cons separated, but then that's just getting really complicated.
Yeah.
I think that would break my brain.
Yeah.
So you said that it was, it took you longer than you expected. But how was it working with the Nintendo Switch hardware and the developer's kit? Can you tell us more about that? Or
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's great. And it's way better than any of the other previous Nintendo platforms. And I've worked on Wii, and it's certain they've definitely made it indie friendly, and it doesn't require a big studio to ship games. Obviously, right? We're seeing the Nindy revolution, sort of,
Yeah.
and so that was a big boon for us. For us, the reason why it took so long is just because the game was built a certain way, and we had to go in and sort of redesign, rebuild some really low level technical stuff to be friendly to the Switch. And that just took us longer than expected.
How was working with Nintendo as far as like publishing the game and getting it on the eShop is concerned? Like, were there any hurdles there, or was it pretty easy?
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's some cryptic stuff you have to decipher, and some stuff that they don't tell you up front that you have to do, that you find out after the fact. I mean, some of that stuff is a little bit frustrating. You don't even know where to look documentation wise. I mean, I could probably spend an hour at the little frustrations, but overall it's done, and we got it out the door, and they've been pretty friendly with us. And although it was interesting when I told, when you have to submit a game to them for their approval. It's not like you can just go on Steam and be like done.
Yeah, like green light or something.
Yeah. It's nothing like that. You have to submit like a formal concept. So when I said, "Hey, we're gonna port Ultrawings," they just came back to me and was like, "Oh, that's an interesting name." And I was
Where
like,
did that come from?
I was like, "Well, I did trademark it, so
That's cool though. I mean, I think it's good to see developers like picking up like some of the ideas that were left behind to these abandoned Nintendo IPs. Wargroove is one. Like Golf Story for like kind of those old, like the Mario Golf and Mario Tennis style RPGs. I like, and it's clear. I mean, it's its own game. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like. It's not going to be a Pilot Wings clone until it has rocket belt levels, obviously,
and skydiving.
Yeah, and skydiving. Maybe for a sequel. No, we'll talk about that later. But it's like, but I think it's really nice to see. Like, there's just so much opportunity for people that have grown up playing these kinds of games and like grew up with these games in their life, and maybe the games that like shaped them, being able to take a stab at these sort of spiritual successor style games.
Yeah, I mean, it was very important with Ultrawings to do open world game. That's really what I wanted to do.
Right.
I wanted to open world aircraft, fly around, do cool things that you could never normally do. Keep it low level, always low elevation, right? Because, I mean, let's be honest. Unless you're like a super hardcore flight sim nerd, flight sims are boring. You fly 30,000 feet in the air, you take off, you land. Maybe you talk to some people that are trying to be, air traffic control. Right. I mean, it's cool, I guess. But for me, I like to see stuff on the ground. I like to fly low. I like to do canyon runs. I like to do all these maneuvers and all that. And it just doesn't, it's boring when you're 30,000 feet in the air,
That's the biggest rush I've gotten so far in that game is just like, going in like in the photo mode when you have to kind of snap shot of some stuff. Like there's one of them is like kind of that canyon overpass sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Like getting real close to that, getting like a really great shot and then being like, fuck, I got to pull up. And then like just getting right at the right spot to where you miss the canyon wall. Like that was a rush, when I pulled it off and then landed it, I felt like a god. It was like, hell yeah,
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is just fly up as high as I can, turn off the engine, and then don't turn it on until the very last second. And then flip it on and then cruise, make that parabola up.
Yeah.
So are you in a phase now where you're kind of done with the game, or is there a lot of promotional work left to do, or is there anything next with the game?
I guess maybe it just depends. Like if suddenly, the Switch version does fantastically well, then it's time to like, hey, well, maybe we can support it a little bit further, right?
Sure.
Maybe we can do another. We already know what we'd like to do, another aircraft wise, the type of aircraft. But we are working on another game that may or may not be Ultrawings 2.
Gotcha.
I can either confirm or deny. But there is another game that is coming along coming down the pipe, so to speak. Obviously, if the Switch version does really well, maybe we'll do a simultaneous launch of
that'd be great.
and then we got the Quest version coming out in May.
So what is that exactly?
So Oculus Quest is a standalone VR headset system where it does not require a PC. It's untethered and it's fully positional tracked, sixed off hands, all that stuff. But you just don't need a PC. It's first of its kind.
Yeah,
it's great.
That might be the like. That's kind of what I've been waiting for to dive into VR. You know, it's like a standalone unit.
Yeah.
Like for me, the best VR I've done up to this point is Gear. Just because I'm not tethered to anything. Like, it feels the most futuristic to just slap something on your head and be in it.
Right.
You know, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
sure.
because when I play PSVR, I have to take it out of the shelf.
Right.
I gotta unwrap it. I gotta plug it in. I have to turn on my TV. I have to turn on my PlayStation. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, the problem is friction, right? Friction
Yeah.
is the biggest detractor for this adoption rate
totally
of VR.
see that, yeah.
And that's the great thing about Switch, right? I mean, that's why Switch is so successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you pick it up and you turn it on and you're gaming in less time than what you would on a PS4.
Yeah.
Less, on Xbox, you have to wait for the boot up sequence. I mean, it's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Switch is perfect for that, right?
Yeah, you're gaming in seconds. Yeah.
And Quest is along those lines for VR, where you just put it on, boom, you're in. I mean, it's like it's a
great.
minute,
I'd love to see PlayStation do something like that with their PSVR.
I hope they go wireless.
Yeah, same. But
Well-
yeah, did you have some other questions?
Yeah, just real quick. So you kind of touched on this, what you're working on, but I know you guys have done another game, The Battle of Seoul. I just wanted to mention that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And that's available on Steam, is that
Yeah,
correct?
it is. Well, I mean, it was a
You're oozing enthusiasm.
yeah, it was great for its time. I think it's the story behind that. It's an interesting story, actually. I did this game with a company here in Austin called Seamless Entertainment. They were around for a while, and they originally just did Wii shovelware. To be quite honest with you, that's what it was. Wii shovelware. They did Sesame Street Flash style games. I mean, it was terrible. And
AAA Sesame Street game.
Yo,
yeah, and,
I played circus games on the Wii.
So the guy that they hired someone to reboot the studio, and he was a friend of mine. He hired me to help reboot it, and we basically laid off like everyone but 6 people. And they asked me, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to work on, and I had been working on this space game called Soul for a while with my previous company. And I was the last one left at the previous company, was the final owner. So I just took it over to that new company, and we busted our ass with this small team of like 6 and made an Unreal 3 powered shooter in about a year and a half. And it came out and it did pretty well, but not enough it's a space combat game. I mean, this is before the Star Citizen blew up and all that stuff, right?
Sure.
But it came out, it did pretty well, but ultimately not enough for their corporate overlords. They shut us down. Fast forward 2 years later, when I became had the opportunity to start a new company, I actually bought that IP back.
Gotcha.
And I remade it into the Battle of Seoul.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to improve the things that I felt that was wrong. It was a pride issue for me. It wasn't like, I'm just, glutton for punishment, although maybe I am.
Yeah, I think we established that already.
But I remade the whole thing from scratch, pretty much. I mean, I even brought back some of the old team members, and we just made a better game. And it didn't, it did okay. But the beauty of that project is that was where I signed my first deal with NVIDIA to put it on their Shield. Remember their Shield
Right, yeah.
streaming system?
I think people are still buying those.
They pay me money so that I could put my game on their platform. And I learned the art of the deal, so to speak.
That's good. Yeah.
I don't want to quote Trump, but just
You're making better deals than he is. Don't worry about it.
So-
not to politicize this podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that's where I learned that. And then, but it's just on there because why
Gotcha.
not?
Well, we're going to move on to what we've been playing and talk about that. But real quick, I am kind of curious. We're an Austin-based podcast, and we've talked about that. Does location play into game development for you at all? I know it's not like you have to be in Hollywood to make movies or whatever, which you don't, obviously. Right. But can you tell us about the scene in Austin and does it matter at all to you, or does it play in at all?
No, I don't. I'm sort of siloed off, and since bulk of my studio is in Manila.
Right.
Which really is really cool because like I get to go to sleep. They're up, wake up.
You see a new build or something?
Yeah, basically, and I do all the design work and even the low level implementation. Like I designed all of the missions in Ultrawings 1, right?
Right.
So but it's fun because yes, while I'm asleep, work is progressing, and then I get up and then work still continues to progress. So it's worked out really well. I don't really interact with that many people here in town. Part of the reason is because I love staying at home in my pajamas,
Well, you've got a great setup for work.
Well, thanks for getting out of the house. And
Thanks for
wearing
inviting
real
me.
clothes.
No, I know. My wife's like, yeah, get out of the house.
But yeah, it's great. I definitely want to implore everybody to check out Ultrawings, especially if you enjoy Pilot Wing styles games or like simulation stuff. It's got a great blend of kind of arcadey style and simulator style. And so if that's your bag, I would definitely say check it out. I've been enjoying it quite a lot.
What do you think visually? I mean, I think it looks pretty good on that Switch, right?
I really like it. Yeah, it's like, and that kind of leads into another game I've been playing. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think the low poly aesthetic is actually really nice. And it's like, because I've seen that done before, and it can be done well, and it can't be done well. I mean, hell, Mario Odyssey had like a low poly world in the most recent Mario game. But it works really well when it's very comforting. You know what I mean? It's like got this.
Yeah, it's bright and yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like you just like put a bunch of stuff down there and like called it a day. It's like the design looks really good and the colors all like work really well. It's very comforting.
It kind of looks like a Nintendo title if you saw it.
I think so as well. Yeah, it definitely caught my eye. Yeah.
So we're gonna move on and we're gonna talk about what we've been playing this week. David, you hinted at something there, so why don't we just follow through on that? What have you been up to?
Other than Ultrawings, which I have been playing quite a bit actually, I've been playing 2 games, both kind of because of this Nindies Direct. I've been playing a lot of Nuclear Throne on my system because it shadow dropped, and so I kind of immediately bought it. I'm a big fan of like Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon. If you've played any of those games, this is definitely the game that inspired Enter the Gungeon, like super fast paced. It's a Vlambeer game, lots of screen shake.
Why did you point at me? That was
who was it? It was you that had the problem.
Well, I don't know. I'd have
No
to
one
play
would have
it,
known that I pointed at you because this is a podcast.
Well, I need to call it out. I need to protect myself because no one else will.
Sure. But I've been playing a lot of that. Definitely, if those kinds of games interest you, this is one of the best. It's just got such a great like game feel. Like I think it's got even better kind of gunplay than Enter the Gungeon. It's just all the guns feel so heavy. You know what I mean? It just feels really good to kill people in that game. And it's got a great gameplay loop. I really recommend that one. It's been out for a long time. Finally came to the Switch. That's great. The other game that I was hinting at that also has kind of a low poly aesthetic is Horizon Chase Turbo.
Okay.
Which is not a very simulation style game, but it's like an old school like 16-bit era like arcade racer, very much like
Outrun, right?
kind of like Outrun, a little bit more like Top Gear.
Okay,
because it's like Outrun is you're getting from point A to point B, and Top Gear is like an actual race with courses, and that's what this is. But just as far as gameplay is concerned, it's so fun. It's been really hard to put down, and it just kind of. Each time you finish a race, you're like, all right, this will be my last one. Okay, well, then I unlock this new car. Okay, I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to do this one. So it's got this really great kind of drip feed of wanting to keep you playing the game. And I'm kind of a sucker for racing games, and there's very few racing games on the Switch right now, So yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, I really recommend Horizon Chase Turbo. I think it's still on sale. It was part of that kind of Nindy sale that was going on. I got it for like $14.
Unfortunately, I think that sale ends right when our podcast comes out.
Oh, okay. Well, get it anyway for $20. For $20, it's quite a lot of content, and it's a good time. I would recommend it.
Chris, what about you? Have you had time to play any games in the last week or so with Ultrawings coming out?
No. GDC was last week, and that was a fun time. And so before that, though, I've been playing a metric ton of both Ultrawings on the Switch,
right?
But a game called Oxygen Not Included.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
So it's a Steam game from a company called Klei. Have you heard of Klei? KLEI.
Oh yeah, that's the Don't Starve people, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
okay. They've been this early access game where it's set in space and it's got that Klei 2D art style that they're sort
Mark
of
of the Ninja
for.
style. Yeah.
And you're sort of managing. It's sort of a survival management game where you're building a colony on this like asteroid thing. It's just and it's all 2D, but it's so addictive because you're managing this colony and you're building everything out while like making sure they don't starve and they have oxygen and they have food and they have water and they can bathe and they can and before you know it, like you're 5 hours into it and and your colony dies. And the weird thing is that I just start over again because it's one of those type of games.
Button for punishment.
Like SimCity. Remember SimCity?
Yeah.
Where you always think, like in SimCity, when I started over, I would always think, well, how could I do it better?
Right, it's like Civilization 2, or one of those games where it's almost more fun to start over than to see it through.
Yeah, because you always
Don't Starve is that way too.
Yeah, you can always think, well, how could I do this better from the last time? And you always seem like you learned something. So even though it seems like I never do.
And that, from my understanding, like I have a coworker that is also really into the game, and he showed me some videos. It's like you can make your colony huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like one game can be, last like 200 hours or something like that in order for your colony to be like big.
Yeah, and you get some Minecraft-esque stuff where you can do like simple like programming things and turn like make machines, make state machines and stuff like that. And so, that's really getting into the weeds that I'm just now barely touching.
Right.
But it's just fun. It's just relaxing in a weird sort of way. Mm-hmm. And then before that, Kingdom Hearts 3. So Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, he was playing a lot of that too.
Huh?
Did you beat it?
I'm not. No, almost.
Yeah, I had fun with it.
I love it. It's so crazy, but I love it
It's
so much.
so insane.
It's bad.
It's fucking ridiculous. Yo, I'm gonna talk next. Is that cool?
Yes, please.
I've been playing Apex Legends, of course. But I've last week. I don't know if all of y'all have played a battle royale game, but there's like a skill gap that happens. You're trying to learn the mechanics. You're trying to learn the guns. You're trying to learn how to move and shoot and like team play, like all at once. And so the gap is huge. And my friends who are non-PC players fucking hate the game.
Right.
Because
everybody's starting to get really good on PC.
you don't feel like you're any good. And I'm just now, after like a month playing it, feel like I'm average.
How many more wins have you had since that one the other week when we were here?
I think I maybe have 8, 9, or 10 wins total.
Wow, nice.
In a month.
That's about where I'm at on Tetris 99.
Yeah. but that feels really good to play. It feels very tangible. I put a lot of hours into it. Yeah, I'll be playing it here in this room. My girlfriend will be asleep, and I'm like, I'm sorry. One more game. It's very good. I've also been playing a lot of Smash in between Apex games, and Palutena is still my main. But I'm really struggling with playing against Wolf, Fox, or Falco.
Noted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a way to beat you, man.
I just can't figure. Fox is way too fast for my style of play.
Yeah.
And so I've been playing online more. And whenever I see a Fox, I'm like, fuck. it just doesn't work. So I have to mix it up. So
Sure.
I feel very humbled. And of course, I've been playing Ultrawings, kind of revisiting it in BSVR because it's like the chillest game.
Yeah.
I can strap in and go to the next island and just fly.
I was telling him I think the best way to play that game would probably be with a VR headset with a fan right underneath.
Yeah.
Feel the wind on your face.
Also,
I sweat in VR headsets a lot, so that'd be helpful as well.
it's great on drugs. It's also just I work 40 hours a week. It's a nice calming flight.
Yeah. A little more in your face than like a truck simulator. Or it's like a little more actual gamey than that.
Matt, you're really into, Apex Legends and Smash competitive gaming and then chilling out.
It's the balance, the yin and the yang, bros.
What about you, Patrick? What have you been playing?
I've been still playing some new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. I'm super close to 100%ing it.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Wow.
And I am also spent a lot of time this week, picked up on that sale that you cannot now get. Sorry, listeners. Wander Song. And I love this game.
Yeah, what is that game? I haven't really seen anything about it.
I'd been kind of eyeing it and heard about it, and I just, with the sale, I was like, I'm just going to get it. And it is speaking to me. So it subverts a lot of video game tropes. It kind of makes fun of a lot of video game stuff, in particular violence. It's sort of a more narrative game. And I used to play tons of narrative games when I was a kid, like on the PC, like all the old Sierra games,
The LucasArts games. Stuff
yeah,
like that.
King's Quest, Police Quest, all that stuff. And I haven't played narrative games in a while, and narrative games kind of lost. I feel like there used to be big narrative games, and now it's all violent games. And I'm not against violence in games, but this game is kind of commenting on that in a really awesome way. You play as a bard, and the world is ending, and basically you're saving the world by singing.
Cool.
And so everything in it kind of plays with the idea of like, oh, there's a monster, we should rush in and fight it. And it's like, no, let me just go sing to it. It's got some nice light platforming where you use the singing mechanic to it's kind of hard to explain, but you use the singing mechanic to do some platforming, and then it's got, otherwise it's kind of like a narrative thing where you interact with all the people in the towns and kind of solve problems through singing. But it's just super charming, and this is not common for me, and even in funny games, but I've laughed out loud a few times.
Wow.
And
this game sounds like the manifestation of the 1980s collective We Are the World.
Wow.
It's very positive, and I feel like that's unusual. Or you know what I mean? It's not unusual that they're positive games, but it's not common to see like positivity over violence, kind of, and commenting on video games. Like this is a sort of a spoiler. There's a character who's like selling bombs in a market, and you go there and you talk to them, and they're like, "Would you like to buy a bomb?" And your character's like, "Why?" and they're like, "Well, if you're out adventuring, you might see like a crack in the wall, and you need to drop a bomb there." And it's like, "Why?" You can't buy bombs. You just
That's
talk
funny.
to them, and your guy's like, "No."
Very, very
That's really good.
meta winky.
Yeah, there's a lot of that
sort
kind of stuff about violence, and so anyway,
That's cool.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like some good collections of games for you guys to check out.
Yeah. So thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris Stockman.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on.
Everybody check out Ultrawings. Thanks to Corduroy for doing the music for the show.
You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, on our Libsyn website.
We're on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. That'd be fantastic.
Shoot
Give
us a
like.
question by email too, or post a comment on any of those. superswitchheads@gmail.com.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be having more developer interviews. I think this went pretty well. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's always really nice to look into
have more developers.
yeah, we will have more developer interviews. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. If you want to check us out online, my handle is @MonolithFiji.
Hey, I'm Matthew, MATHYOU on Twitter.
I'm PDYX, and how can people find you in BitPlanet, Chris?
At BitPlanet Games or bitplanetgames.com.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks again, Chris, and everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.